Fastest way to look like you're actually getting a full night's sleep? Bronzer.
Fastest way to appear like you live on a permanent vacation, bronzer.
Fastest way to make your skin look dull, dry, and dirty? The wrong bronzer. Welcome to Life Gloss, a beauty podcast for sassy and seasoned women who have lived life and have a drawer full of lip gloss to prove it. We're your hosts, Susan Gerdeman
and Hillary Clark Mina. Join us each Thursday as we discuss life and how it relates to the world of beauty inside and out.
And that's why we're talking about everything bronzer today on Life Gloss. Which formula, cream, liquid, powder, which shade, matte or shimmer, and application tips in some of our favorites so that you can turn that bronze metal into a gold one. We've all seen bronzer mishaps and contour, bronzer. Like there's a lot of mucking it up out there. So we're going to break it down. Susan, let's start with bronzer formulas. Let's kick it off with cream.
I think creams are probably, believe it or not, one of the easiest bronzing products to use. I know most women will reach for a powder. They think that it's super easy, but I find creams to be just very forgiving. They tend to be a little on the sheerer side. They go on really nice and soft. And I do think that they are, generally speaking, and I'm generally speaking here, I think they're a little bit of more of a soft focus look on a more mature skin. Traditionally, creams are for more of a drier skin, but I find with certain cream formulas, and especially more of like a cream gel formula, really any skin type can use them. But I really do, for me personally, I use a cream. I tend to reach for a cream more than anything. And I just like the way they look. It almost gives this glow.
Yeah, at this point of my life, I need all the forgiveness I can get. And I need a quick, easy glow. I do. I reach for a cream, whereas, when I was younger, I was relying more on my gels, which I will mention both at the end when we talk about the things that we love. But I find that gels, they can grab a little more. I have to mix them with, something whipped to lay them down properly. A cream, particularly in the modern formulas, I can use with a small brush to do detail contour work if I want, or I can use a bigger brush. And if I just need to get out the door and I just need to breathe a little life into this old bag, then a bronzer is definitely my number one. And a
Yeah,
cream.
I think they can be used. I find them best used with a nylon type brush, a synthetic type brush, versus a real hair. And definitely a better application than with fingers or a sponge. So when you're working with a cream bronzer on yourself at home, definitely try to find some type of a synthetic or a nylon type brush to work with. I think that's the best, probably, way to use that type of a bronzer.
I agree. And I like one that does not have a really slippery fiber. So I'm not necessarily looking for a foundation sort of a brush. I want something a little bit fluffier, even if that's an older brush that maybe is a little frayed. Maybe she has split ends at the ends, because you never know how you can repurpose your brushes. And that's such a great money saving tip. If some of your old Telcon or some of your synthetics have gotten a little bit of a split end at the end of the hairs, that's going to be great for a cream bronzer because it's fluffy and moussey and you can, flutter it onto the skin and blend it out.
That's a great tip. I just think generally speaking, cream is a really good direction to go and not be afraid of it. I think so many women are afraid of creams. They think powders just go on lighter and easier. But as we said, the formulas have changed and there's so many wonderful ones that are out there on the market that we can talk about later. But they just give this just a very soft focus look. So I'm a huge fan of a cream. And if you think of applying it in the same way you would a powder, and we'll talk about some application tips in a minute, but if you think of it the same way as a powder, it works exactly the same. You just really have to make sure that the skin is really well hydrated, well prepped. And I think they go on just beautifully. You can, in a pinch, though, because it's a cream, even use it without really prepping the skin, because it's just so soft and it blends so well. But I do find them to be really mistake proof. But so many people are afraid of them. So don't be afraid of the creams. I think they're really soft and they're really forgiving, especially on a mature, drier skin. I think the next formulation we want to talk about is a stick bronzer, which is kind of like a portable cream. Think of it that way, where creams traditionally come in jars or pans or compacts. A stick is really basically a cream bronzer, just in something more portable, different type of application. And it's a type of application you can pick it up with a brush, or you can just use it right on the face.
Exactly. And we've been seeing a lot of things, especially with like Victoria Beckham. We've been seeing bronzing sticks being used for contour. And I think this is great. And when we do a contour episode, we'll talk a little bit about this. Contours that are gray are really for the photo studios. Using a bronzing stick in natural light is going to look more like a real shadow. So I love the sticks. For like, I'll do an all over with a cream. And then if I do want to define features, like if I want to do my nose or even do a little bit of a boost to my cheekbones or under the jaw, I like a stick for the detail work.
I love a stick. I mean, it's portable. I use one all the time. It's easy. You can take it with you. You can touch up. You can even use it in the creases of the eye as like a quick shadow contour. And to your point, I think a lot of people do use their bronzers as a contour, and a stick is a great purpose for that. Just be careful with anything that has too much shimmer in it if you're going to contour. So you want to make sure that the cream or the powder or any formulation of a bronzer, and we'll talk more about this, but any formulation of a bronzer that you use, if it has shimmer in it, it's probably best used as a highlight or a bronzer. Contour, you definitely want to make sure that it is a matte or a cream matte formula. Otherwise, it reflects light in the exact place you don't want to reflect light.
100%. I am such a huge fan of using a matte bronzer across all formulas. And some of the, they generally they will have some light reflection. But if I want a shimmer, I want a product dedicated to shimmer. I don't want to have to baby step with my bronzer and be too concerned that it's going to reflect too much light and undo what I'm intentionally trying to do. So as a rule, at this phase of my life, I tend to go with a matte or even just a very subtle light reflection in a bronzer. And I rely on my shimmers other places in a different product.
I agree, because too much shimmer, you can definitely show the pores as well as the fine lines. So be careful of that.
Absolutely.
I think we're also seeing that trend. Well, I shouldn't even call it a trend because it's so old school and it's so classic, but using a concealer as a bronzer or a bronzer, which is a contour bronzer combination. We've seen that. We've both done that and used that. I think that sort of brings us to the next product, the liquids or the gels.
Absolutely. And I lived for the liquids and the gels. I mean, I know I still to this day, Clinique has this gel in their men's line. So it's like, if you look at Clinique Man or Clinique for Men, they have this bronzing gel that I used forever, and I'll still pick it up, especially in humidity for the summer, or if I'm like having hot flashes during a period of my life. I love a bronzing gel. I find that it went away for a while. It came back. It's a little redder than I remember it right now, which happens in product development over time. But a liquid or a gel, you have to work a little more quickly. You have to be careful with a brush. You have to be pretty precise because it's going to grab and stay where you put it. But even Guerlain did a liquid that was beautiful. And we're seeing lots of liquids again I think it's trending with like the 10-year-olds, but the liquids are back.
I think we're seeing a lot of liquids. I know Rare Beauty, Selena Gomez's line is doing one. Um, and I do like a liquid in a gel. I tend to like them on a younger skin. I'm going to be honest, I do. Unless you're very oily and shiny, a mature, oily, or shinier skin can definitely use a liquid or a gel more than a more mature, drier skin because liquids and gels do contain a lot of alcohol in them. And that's why they dry so quickly. And for me, I don't use them for that reason. They just tend to make me look a lot older than I really want to. So I tend to skip them. But I do know that Clinique men's bronzing gel, and that's a beautiful one if you are going to go with a gel. Be careful though. I find the gels can definitely run a little bit more reddish, a little bit more orangey. So I often will grab a liquid or a gel if I'm working with someone that wants a bronzy look that maybe is more of an oily skin. I'll grab one, um, for maybe someone with a more pigmented or a deeper skin or really rich natural tan. Then I love a gel or a liquid. I think it's gorgeous. I think the rule of thumb, and I think you'll agree, Hillary, the smoother the skin, the better the skin, the easier it is to use a gel or liquid formulation. That's the honest truth.
Absolutely. And I use them. I also use them when I'm doing body. So if you're going to the beach and you're still wearing your bikini, but you're not feeling great about your abs, you can get in there with like a little foundation brush and you can do some little faux chisels. And it's pretty natural and flirt it out. It makes some good shadows. So
That's true. Or, even mix a little bit of, an old liquid or gel bronzer you're not using anymore. Mix it with a little bit of your sunscreen and your lotion. Mix it together and put it on your body. It'll dry quickly. It gives you a little insta tan. It's another way to use up some product that you're not using on your face anymore. Mix it in with your body or your sunscreen.
Yep, definitely. Definitely. And that brings us to the original, the powders. Powders, gosh, we have been seeing so much innovation with powder bronzers right now.
So much.
And they're just a good powder bronzer is always going to give you the je ne sais quoi. What have you been up to? Where have you been? You can get away with a little bit more shimmer as long as it's not a frost. You can get away with a delicate light reflection here. And a powder, it takes me back, and I leave them neglected in my drawer for eons, and then when I go back to them, I think, oh, hello, lover, I've missed you.
I love a powder bronzer, especially on the collarbones. I absolutely love it on the chest area. I think it's gorgeous. It's quick. It's easy. It's like a cheap and easy bronzer. It's just fast and furious, a powder. They definitely will show age if your skin is not prepped, if it's not, or if it's too dry, a powder probably isn't your best friend. But to your point, the formulations have really changed, and we're seeing this lovely hybrid of a cream or a gel powder. I know RMS is doing a great bronzer that's a gel powder. House Labs, I believe, is doing one too. So those are something to look for. If you want to use a powder that a powder bronzer and you're more mature, I would definitely look for some of the gel powder hybrid products. I think they give a beautiful glow and they're not at all drying. I think they're really nice.
They're really nice, and most of those are coming out of Italy right now. So we're seeing Italian innovation doing those. So they're really, really pretty. Let's talk a little bit about the shade selection. We talked about not going too gray. You can use your bronzer as a contour. It's more of a bronzer. We've even been seeing like Maxine's Revenge doing that. It's an old school trick that's more modern. But shade selection, I feel like things, as we've talked about with brows, and we've talked about even with lip liners, things are going so orange lately. It's
Way
important
too
to look
orange.
for more of a neutral undertone, or you can look like you're really trying too hard, and it can look a little phony, not in a good way. And it can be
I think you need to be really careful when you're doing shade selection. The deeper your skin, the more tanned or the more naturally dark and deep your skin is, you can definitely get away with more in the bronzer world. There isn't too many mistakes, or there aren't too many mistakes you're going to make. I find that the lighter the skin, it can really show up. The orange, the fake tan look, it can look really bad. So you've got those sort of copper tones, you've got more gold or champagne tones. And I think for a lot of the very fair skin tones, you want to definitely go with something that leans a little bit more on the pinkish side in a bronzer versus something that's extremely warm. But that being said, I think we need to be really careful because a lot of these companies will confuse warm and cool, and you'll end up with something, like you said, really gray. And that's not what we want. It's that neutral shade that you're looking for that can be really hard to find right now because for some reason everything is going very, very warm, very orangey. So try to look for words like copper or neutral, even something with a beige, a light beige in it, gold, champagne. Those are some great words on a bronzer when you tend to be a fairer skin tone or a lighter skin tone, even a medium skin tone. Just be really careful with going to anything too orangey.
Right. And that's why when you're in the class category, that's why I really like to be able to try them on when you're at a counter, and don't be afraid to test drive them, see if they're going to oxidize, see if they're going to move. But if you're buying in mass and you're not able to try them on, go lighter and avoid orange and avoid gray. Try to stay more in the mid range.
That's great advice. I think we also want to talk for a minute about where to put bronzer. And one of the best tips I got when I was starting out as a makeup artist in applying bronzer was to take a mirror, take a hand mirror, go to the window, literally look up, hold up the mirror, and wherever the sun is hitting you, that's where you apply bronzer. And that always sort of stuck with me. So that's like along the temples and hairline. It's across the cheeks and bridge of the nose. It's maybe slightly shadowed along the jawline. It could even be down the center of the face, but depending sort of on the time of day. But I think we need to be careful when applying bronzer that we don't go for that really sort of skunk striped, chiseled right underneath the cheekbone. I think we need to be very careful with bronzer. It's meant to give you that sort of fake glow, that gorgeous, I've been away, even though I haven't been anywhere I want to look like I've been somewhere. So I think we need to be careful to really place it where the sun would naturally hit you. That being said, please be careful of this huge trend I'm seeing a lot online and on TikTok and Instagram of too much on the nose. That ski bunny burnt look, that can look just as fake as doing too much bronzer or too much contour. So be careful of that. I've noticed a lot of people look like they've had like too many martinis versus actually a vacation at the beach.
True. And as we get older, like when you're younger, you can get away with that ski bunny more. As we get older, we start getting redder around the nose and across the nose. So it starts to make you look like you've been boozing and you haven't been well rested. So you have to be careful. Also, one area that I used to apply bronzer, the high points of the face, I used to apply bronzer in my temples, but now I will apply my bronzer everywhere. And then I'll go back in with a matte concealer and I'll just tap a little lightness in my temples because I don't want to look hollow there. I want to use a lighter color to bring that area out because we do start to get hollow in our faces right there as we get older. So,
and after you bronze, it's a great time to go back in with a little bit of a powder or a little bit of a blush after. And that will help give that sort of soft focus look. It should look real or as real as possible. Always start with a little bit less. You can always build up. I used to always tell all my students, what in makeup artist students, I would say, it's always easier to add than to take away. And I think that's something you need to remember when you're working with bronzer. It's easier to go back and add more. One of the best places to do it honestly, is the rear view mirror in your car. Obviously, not when you're driving or operating your vehicle. However, when you're sitting in the car, grab your bronzer, grab your brush, quick, look in the rear view mirror. For some reason, I get my best bronzing looks from looking up into that rear view mirror when it's a sunny day, and it just looks so natural and real. Like you can really see where the sun hits and where it looks the most natural. So that's a little tip for everybody when you're in your car.
I love that tip. And I know some people get all freaked out about, ew, doing your makeup in your car. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but I live in Los Angeles. We
Yeah.
do a lot in the car. And the rearview mirror is the truth teller. How many of us have gotten in the car, looked in the mirror and thought, ooh, when did my shimmer eyeshadow stop working for my lids and making me look crepey? The rearview mirror is the truth teller. So, I mean, if you're going to be hardcore, it's a great, great, great mirror to use.
Yeah. How
100%.
many of us gotten in the car? How many of us have gotten in the car and wanted to rip the rear view mirror out and say, wow, can I really use my car without a rear view mirror? Do you think that's possible to drive? Can I have this like taken out when I go in and, bring my car in for service? Can you remove my rear view mirror, please? That's kind of how I'm thinking these days, but unfortunately we need one to operate the vehicle. But yes, it is the truth teller. The truth teller from hell, but it's the truth teller for sure.
It's so true. It's so true. So, Susan, let's talk a little bit about our favorites. Which formulas do you love? Cream, powder, and let's give people a mask because we don't want to, always be dumping all of our cash into a bronzer. And there are some really good mask formulas now.
My favorite cream bronzer right now is the Westman Atelier Face Trace Bronzing Stick. I use it in the shade Biscuit. She's got a great shade range. And I love it because it's small. She has a petite size, actually, which I carry with me, and then the regular full-size stick. I absolutely love this because it's got the perfect size. You can just apply it directly out of the stick, or you can use a brush or your fingertips. I love that it's a very sheer, lightweight cream with no shimmer. It's got a glow in it, but a very low mica load. So it's not like a matte, but it's not a shimmer. It's just a beautiful, glowy cream. And I think that Gucci did a great job on that particular product. And the shades are incredible. I love it. It's the most natural cream bronzer, quite frankly, I've ever found. And the shade Biscuit is a beautiful neutral tone. It's not at all orange. It's one of the few ones that I've actually found out there. For a powder, I think Hourglass Ambient Lighting Bronzer, I think they do a beautiful, beautiful job with their powders and blushers, and they've translated this to their bronzers as well. They have a marbleized effect. They're not too shimmery. They're definitely not matte, but they have a nice glow. I like those a lot, and they're very lightweight. Those I think are really mistake proof too. You have to use a lot to make a mistake. And then for mass, one that I've used on and off for years, I really like it on the chest and on the collarbones too, is the Physicians Formula Muru butter. I think am I saying that right? Muru butter bronzer. It's fantastic. I want to say it's like under $10. It's really accessible. The shade range is incredible. It goes from the lightest to the darkest. Really beautiful. They do tend to be very shimmery. These are not powders that you would want to do a bronzer with at all. They're definitely more of a highlight bronzer. Absolutely beautiful, though, I have to say. I love those. How about you?
I love those too. It's so funny. Butter seems to be the word that's like out there right now in marketing for bronzers. It's
For
so
sure.
fun. So for a cream, I have relied on the Chanel, the whipped bronzer. Like the Westman, I'm thrilled with the fact that it comes in two sizes, the large, the small. I love that I can just swish a brush in there, apply it. It's heavenly. It reflects just a little light, but it has that matte. It is so goof proof. It floats above the skin. It makes my skin look pretty every single time. So the Chanel for a cream, I absolutely cannot get enough of. Powder, I'm old school. My Guerlain, still my absolute favorite. I tend to go in the lightest shades for both. I can bump it up a little bit, but the Guerlain, it gives me a little more of a va 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 boom. I like that one when I have a little bit of color, when I have a little tan, it reflects more light. So that's more of my evening bronzer, or my maybe going on vacation, coming home from vacation bronzer. And then for mask, I'm liking this new NYX Buttermelt, or Buttermelt, pardon me, the NYX Butter Melt. Again, that word butter is everywhere. It's matte, it blends, it kind of has a creamy gel powder feel. It's an interesting hybrid. And it's the one that if I wanted to save a little bit, but I wanted the benefits of, a fancy Chanel and a Guerlain, that one's kind of the best of both worlds. And you can add some shimmer on top. So I think those are the options that are going to take your bronzer and take your bronze metal and turn it into a gold.
Well, I'm ready to go on vacation now. Where are we going to go? I'm like ready. Let's get out of here.
Anywhere. I will go anywhere.
I know. Oh my God, Maui's looking really good right now. As we're doing this podcast, I'm sitting here thinking, my God, I just want to take these bronzers, put them all in my suitcase, and get out of here. I'm like dying to go on a vacation. So we definitely have some great episodes coming up talking about travel and what to bring this summer and some great summer looks. But we thought this was a good place to start, bronzers. And I really, I think everybody needs one. And it's just the fastest way to look rested and look like you actually went somewhere. I'm jealous.
I love a cheat. This is such a good cheat. I love it. So meanwhile, as we're getting ready to talk about summer, the rest of the season, you can find us on all of our social channels at Life Gloss Podcast. If you want to visit our website, it's lifegloss.com, life-gloss.com. And we will look forward to seeing you very soon. Until then, Susan, as always, stay glossy,
stay bronzy, and stay glossy.